Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube and we have another episode of the K2N vlog. This last weekend we just did the St. John's River Challenge up in Jacksonville. The event is put on by an organization called Nalu Uli Uli, which means the Big Blue Wave. Kanala Nui is the full name for K2N, which means the Big Wave. So we have another organization in Florida with a similar name and also a similar premise. They are based around dragon boat as well as outrigger canoe. And being able to go out and support their organization with the participation. Last year I did the race and it was called the Pottsburg River Challenge, which is on the Pottsburg River, leads to the Arlington River, leads to the St. John's River and back. This year we started on the St. John's River into the Arlington River and back to the St. John's. So last year's course was about 13.1 miles. This year was only 8.5 miles. The venue was at Jacksonville University, which was really cool, easy to park, easy to launch, an awesome landscape on the side as we're racing. The race course itself was incredibly brutal, having the St. John's current and having an outgoing ocean influenced tide in the direction of the St. John's River flow made the upriver sections incredibly difficult. For myself personally, it took about 55 minutes to get to the halfway mark of the race. Then turning, it only took 25 additional more minutes to finish the race. With those upcurrent sections, you spend more time going slow, which was incredibly brutal, especially for the OC1 that I was racing. I'll go into more detail about the race at the end of the video here where we have our racing footage. My wife was able to race as well in the OC1. She finished 4th overall amongst the men included. The next finisher behind her, I believe, was about 16 minutes in the ladies category. So it's great to see her skills coming together and being able to race and finish ahead of a lot of the guys. I know for the ladies, being able to finish ahead of guys is always a big feather in the cap. So this week's talking point that I wanted to get into before we get into the race footage is looking at videos on social media that are very short, that are designed to help you with your paddling technique. If you follow K2N, you have an idea of how complicated paddling is. This channel has hundreds of videos. The K2N Online Paddle School has hundreds of videos to help educate paddlers on going over every little nuance of paddling. The ability to surmise all of this information in 60 seconds or less is a disservice to how complicated paddling is as a whole. The only way that we can try to surmise information into a very small elapsed amount of time is by cutting corners, by not showing the entire picture. This leads to paddlers that learn in a very literal way to fall into a set of very poor muscle memory habits. And a lot of learners are very literal. When they see something, they learn it in a very literal way. When you show something, they are literally going to copy you movement for movement. Even if you explain that you are doing it exaggerated or doing it in a way that is supposed to be easy to view, people are going to follow you literally. And this is a problem because they're not copying you when you're actually taking real paddle strokes in a real racing environment. They are watching you when you are going through movement that you can pose your way through because you're not really moving a boat. And this would be like getting a college degree and being like, oh, all those classes you took, we can just surmise them in 60 seconds or less on Instagram or TikTok. That would be absolutely ridiculous to propose that. And the reality is you can only give a small snapshot into some of this insight. And with paddling being so technical, any information that you omit doesn't paint the entire picture for somebody to really learn. This is a problem. There's a lot of paddlers that are really glued to the 30 to 60 second format where like, I need this instant gratification of do this one weird trick and you will go so much faster. And it leads to a habitual habit that is very hard to try and fix in the long term. Through the K2N Online Paddle School, I work with a lot of people via video reviews and working with them in person. And there's a lot of these tips that you get to see over and over. And I can almost trace back the exact source material and quote the thing that they are trying to mimic. And again, they're not absorbing the information conceptually, right? They are absorbing the information literally. So when they see these clips, they try to do it blow for blow, but when they're going through the motion, it doesn't make sense anymore because they can only do it on land, or they can only do it when the boat's not moving. But when the boat is actually moving, they have issues trying to convert some of these ideas. This is the same for the source material. The source material can do these ideas in a boat on land, or they can do it when they're not moving their boat through the water. But when they're actually paddling, it tells a dramatically different story. Here at K2N, we are trying to understand a boat in motion, a paddler going through real strokes and dissecting that. I am not interested in what you look like explaining it on land, because you can do whatever you want with your motion. I am more interested in how can you apply it? What does it look like in real time, and how can we break it down? Being able to surmise every single joint of the body moving in fluidity in under 60 seconds, again, is a disservice to everybody watching it. It goes into the instant gratification of people's minds, right? We want this instant thing, and we want to just share, hey, watch this 30-second clip and you're gonna be a better paddler. The consequences of trying to copy only partial information can haunt you for years and years. It's just something to take in mind. When you see something and it's just very fast delivered information without explaining the entire picture, you are more likely to go down a rabbit hole that is very hard to climb out of. That's the whole reason that I do long form content. You cannot surmise it in 60 seconds. When you take calculus, you can't finish the class in under a minute. And that's just the way it is. It's just the difficulty of the task at hand, and you have to respect how difficult it is and understand that you can't just beat it in 30 seconds. You have to make a lifelong commitment in order to understand it and progress in a real, meaningful way. Thank you all so much for checking out the YouTube video. If there's any topics you would like to see discussed, feel free to leave a comment anytime. I hope you guys enjoy the race footage of myself and my wife out there on the race course. And thank you guys so much again, and we'll see you all next week for the next episode of the K2N vlog. All right, everybody, welcome to Jacksonville University up here in Arlington, Jacksonville. Getting a shot of everything. Christina's borrowing a boat from our club member. She's in a Draco as well. This is after the safety meeting. We're all staging, going down to launch. There's a really nice beach entry here, so this is an excellent venue overall. Showing off, having the boat on the head, no hands. I told him I must have too much time on my hands to practice that move, huh? And going out in the water, making sure that my sit position, my seat are all good, flying the AMA, just getting calibrated, and just trying to strike fear into the competitors' hearts a little bit. Just kidding. But I always fly the AMA before racing, just make sure everything feels right. If something's gonna fall apart, it's gonna happen then and there, and I'd rather it happen during the warm-up and not on the race course. So speaking of that, we have the race course here. We actually start going down the river for like 3 minutes, and then we turn and go upriver for the additional 55 minutes that I mentioned before. And you can see everybody's kind of struggling to stay on the line because it is just ripping with the current. And so this is the start line. They blow the horn, I hit my watch, and I start paddling. I'm in pretty good position here. The current's drifting me up, and as they started it, I was in fairly good position. Everybody's going super fast. Everybody is a superstar going downriver, myself included. So going fast when everything's helping you is really easy, especially in the OC1. Having the AMA and the rudder and all that is something that just catches some of the downriver current a little bit better. And proportionally, I always end up going faster when the conditions are faster. And then Christina, she started right behind me. And we have a little bit of chaos here for her start line sequence. So we have everybody coming up, about to start, and we have Caitlin Schmensky here in the surf ski. She's in kill mode, going for Christina's AMA. But you can see how frantic the start is. Everybody's really close to each other, and the current's moving around. Once the boats get going, it starts to even out much better. But just trying to stay in place on a start line that's windy or has current, I think we've all been there on it being very difficult. It takes a lot of practice to really nail that. We had some of the competitors were sideways before the race started. Always important to listen to for the starter. When they say there's 1 minute, you better be facing in the direction that you need to. So we're all going downriver, and we're aiming for a buoy. And that buoy is here. It's on the left. It's the yellow dot. Chad's up in the front. We have the tandem surf ski, Sally O'Donnell, Mike Malone. We have another surf ski. I don't remember his name. I'm going to see it in the results at the end of the video there. But I'm in 3rd position overall here, coming around the turn, flipping the camera around to see some of the other racers. We have Flavio in the V1. He is next to me. And that boat doesn't turn very well. And he doesn't make the turn, and he successfully takes out the other 2 surf skis behind me. And so as we turn into the upriver here, I get an additional lead. And now we're getting some footage from Christina coming into the turn. So she has a stand-up paddle boarder in front of her, and you can see a bunch of the other OC1s, OC2s and stuff starting to round the buoy. And she's got a little bit of traffic around her as she starts to navigate this turn. Making it through the turn and going into this upriver section. You can see how some of the other boats are going to be affected by the current differently. The stand-up paddleboard was way ahead of her at the turn buoy, and then going into the current, right, that board is going to be beat up a lot more by that current. So racing category to category, Christina has an advantage. There's an OC2 in the back on the side there, and that boat goes a little faster up current as well. So when we do these races, typically we're racing within our category, but at a certain point you start looking around and you start racing the people that are around you, right? So there's a lot of times here where I'm racing surf skis and, you know, OC2s, and after a lot of races you get familiar with like, oh, I should finish near them. But the reason that we have boat categories is every vessel deals with different environments differently. And so a surf ski, a tandem boat, all of these things are better at dealing with really slow water because you have the higher stroke rate, you have more weight, and that allows for that glide to not be diminished as fast. You're not dragging an AMA. And the V1 versus the OC1, the V1 goes up current so much better. So there are some disadvantages to a V1 that are wind related to steering. On the course today, there's really not much wind. It's pulling the nose in the direction of the course. So Flavio over in the V1, man, he killed me on this course. I just could not keep up. And it wasn't that I was like out of shape or paddling poorly. It's just the amount of energy I was putting in. Proportionally, I wasn't getting as much out of it as I normally do. So I wasn't able to keep up with a lot of the usual suspects that were out of category. 55 minutes of going slower, but only having 25 minutes to try and close that gap. It didn't work out in my favor in the end, racing out of category. In category, everybody in the OC1, we're all on the same course, we're all struggling, we're all suffering. And so coming around, so this is all still into the current, but you can start seeing how much the current is ripping as we go around this little island here and the shallow water. You can see the water is just super, super turbulent. So racing out of category, one of the things that I do to be an equalizer is drafting. If I can draft against a craft that is less affected by the current, I get to absorb some of their strengths to negate my weaknesses. And so in this race, we're not allowed to race out of category or not allowed to draft out of category. And so I had to stay pretty far away from a lot of the racers as they passed me. And instead of using their boat wake to my advantage, I just watched them walk away from me. So kind of a bummer, you know, not being close and competitive with some of the other racers that I normally am, but it's still nice winning the event overall. Here's Christina, and then this is the last footage of me. There's the surf ski that passed me towards the end, and then there's my boat, and I'm telling her, man, this is terrible. But she gutted it through and had a very good performance out here despite the current being so disadvantageous to our overall boat speeds. So that is it for the race. I hope you guys found that semi-insightful. Again, here in Florida, you know, if two boats are going in the same direction, we are now racing, so it doesn't matter what you're racing or how you're racing it. Everybody wants to be competitive category to category, and I think that adds a lot to the fun of racing with so many different paddle crafts out on the water. So that is it for the race footage. Thank you guys so much for checking it out this week. If there are any topics or things that you would like to see discussed in the future, feel free to reach out anytime. Here's a little slideshow of all of the racers. You can find the St. Johns River Challenge on Paddle Guru if you want to go and check out the race results. Very well attended with about 50 boats out on the water. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week.